This is something I've been looking forward to. I now get to introduce the next governor of South Dakota. I met Scott several years ago, but I didn't really get to know him until he decided in 2006 to run for the state senate. We were very blessed to have him be elected, and as the Democratic caucus, we saw quite an opportunity and immediately made him the leader of our caucus. That was at the same time that I became the caucus chairman. So Scott and I spent the last 4 years working pretty closely together. We've traveled the state, we've raised money, we've recruited candidates. I want to tell you one story about this guy. You get nervous? We were on a trip from Isabel to Rapid City. We took the scenic route. And every time, every hill we came over, every time we passed a grove of trees, or a river, or a rock, Scott would immediately start telling me a story about that river, or that rock, or that grove of trees. And this went on pretty much nonstop for about 100 miles. And at what point I suggested maybe we listen to the radio or ride in silence. And Scott immediately accused me of having an insufficient amount of love for South Dakota. Let me tell you, we have been in the trenches together out in Pierre. I have seen the heart of this man. Nobody knows more about South Dakota than Scott. Nobody loves this state more than Scott. I'm so proud to be part of the team that's going to take over the second floor of the Capitol building. Ladies and gentlemen, our next governor, Scott Heidelberg.
Boy, it's just a thrill to be a Democrat in South Dakota tonight. Don't you feel it? Senator Johnson and Barb, thank you so much for your leadership and your inspiration. Tim and I go back a long ways, and we've been friends and we've been colleagues together, and I'm just honored to know you. And Barb, what you did today at the luncheon that featured my wife Susan and several other family members was just an inspiration for us all, and I thank you so much for that. Senator Klobuchar is no longer with us, but I hope I have the chance to vote for her for president someday. And our Congresswoman, Stephanie, you spoke to us from the heart, and I thank you. That was beautiful. I have never heard you so powerful and so meaningful, and you and I together are going to lead this ticket to victory in November. What a thrill it is to be in a city with the mayor named Mike Huther. Of outstanding nominees that were chosen by this very convention today. You know, you chose 6 people, 4 of whom I've had the privilege of serving with in the legislature. I know them very, very well. Of course, you've talked to Ben, and you know Julie, but Tom Katus is a really special individual that I want to tell you a little about. And of course, Ron Valesky and I have gone back for years and years, and he'll do an outstanding job. But I have to tell you one Katus story, because Tom Katus, as was mentioned, is a Peace Corps volunteer, and he's worked organizing on the reservations, bringing both Native folks and non-Native folks together in all kinds of different ways. But I got to know Tom Katus when we both came to the Senate in 2006. And Tom had a sort of naive belief in the fairness of the process of politics in Pierce, South Dakota. I'll never forget, he offered an amendment on the floor of the Senate one day, and it was not in any way partisan. And he spoke to the amendment, and he explained in detail why it was important, and it went down on a party line vote. And he looked back stunned, like, what just happened? And I immediately called a caucus, and we went back into the room, and I said to my fellow senators, just remember this day. remember what they did to Senator Cadiz, and mark this memory in time, so that when we take over, we don't repeat the errors of this majority, we advance the ball, and we bring a new ethic to government in South Dakota. That's what Tom Cadiz is about. That's what we're all about. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Democrats, we stand on the brink of history tonight. We stand on the brink of history, and I'm just honored to be a part of it. You know, a few days ago it was Father's Day, and so I had the great privilege of spending some time with my family, and I want you to know them. You've gotten to know them a little bit throughout this process, but I'd like you to meet them personally. First of all, I would like my son Sam to stand up. Sam, would you stand up and just face the crowd? I want to tell you about Sam. Today it was Quarry Days in Del Rapids, my opponent's hometown. And so we did the only reasonable thing a candidate would do. I sent my son. So what do you call it when on one side you have Sam Heideprim, and on the other side you have my opponent, a drum line, and 50 volunteers? What do you call that? I call it a draw. It's a draw. My son Pete, would you stand up, please? While Sam was at Quarry Days, we sent Pete to Garrison. And finally, my wife of 25 years, Susan Carlson Heideprim, would you please stand up here? I thought back 12 months ago, Steve Jardine was sitting in our dining room trying to convince Susan that this was something that she should give us the go-ahead to do. And she was giving every indication, body language, etc., arms crossed, lips pursed, not going to happen, not going to happen. And after a while, she softened to the idea. She saw how enthused I was. That had an effect on her, I think. And before you knew it, she was in it to win it. And today, when you saw her with Barb Johnson at that really neat luncheon talking about family members involved in campaigns, I thought to myself, my oh my, how lucky I am. 12 months ago, Susan was not so inspired by this idea, and today she was articulate and wise and terrific in every way, and I thank you for that. We do stand on the brink of history tonight. We're going to change South Dakota in a very fundamental way in 2010. Now, this isn't going to be the first time the Democrats have the opportunity to lead in South Dakota, and I think it's an important thing for us to set the stage by remembering a time when Democrats actually exercised leadership in Pierce, South Dakota, and in state government. It's a period of time that I refer to as a sort of golden age in South Dakota, 1970 to 1978. The election of Dick Knight as governor of South Dakota. Subsequently in the 70s, elections of majorities in the House and Senate. But more important than that, more important than electoral victories, is what happened in South Dakota during that time. And if you stop and think about what a different state we would have today were it not for the leadership that Democrats showed in Pierce, South Dakota during that time. Just a few things. The South Dakota Building Authority, a creation of the Democratic Party in Pierre in the 1970s, has seen to $5 billion in the construction of private residences and homes throughout South Dakota, and it's still going strong. The South Dakota retirement system, a model created out of whole cloth by Democrats in the legislature and the administration that has become the envy of the nation in terms of stability for a retirement system. The South Dakota Investment Council, again, the envy of the world when it comes to investment councils. Not perfect by any means. We all have some ideas about how to make it better. But I think back in the 1970s and remember that the bill to create the South Dakota Investment Council had exactly one sponsor. One sponsor. His name was Harvey Wallman. He was the leader of the state senate. And he fought for this idea of unifying the investments of the state of South Dakota so that we had some meaningful velocity and power in those investments. It was Harvey Wallman